But God prepared us for this new life because we were fulfilling God's plan for us. A plan that never entered my mind, but God prepared us for this next chapter by finally getting our attention focused on Him. Here in Chicago, in Palatine, there was a marriage encounter community waiting to greet us. In fact, we were contacted by a couple before we left New York. Now, after 6 to 9 months of meeting with couples at our house, the Lord turned the page on us, and we saw in the St. Teresa Parish Bulletin an ad for a charismatic prayer meeting. We had no idea what that was. But it was on a Wednesday night, and that was a night that we were free. As it turns out, as we go along, I won't have any free nights. But that night was free, and we decided to go see what it was all about. So we went over to church, and in the choir loft there, when we had a choir loft before the construction, there was a group of people meeting up there. That was in September of 1975, and obviously not the end of the story or of my journey. As I look back on it, it was the beginning of a new life in the Spirit. As it turned out, and again, another God incident, that night they were starting the 7-week series, the Life in the Spirit seminar, which Jeff had mentioned. And we were there for 7 weeks being taught about what that all meant. And I highly recommend it to you when you find out that there is a seminar going on someplace. Give up that 7 weeks for 6 weeks. It's well worth every minute of it. The seminar consists of talks on God's love, salvation, a new life, receiving God's Spirit, and praying for the release of the Spirit within. Those of us who were baptized and confirmed have the fullness of the Spirit within us. This seminar shows us how we need to use that Spirit and take that gift and bring it out, because the gift that's still wrapped up within us doesn't do any good. And then the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, cannot do what it was sent to do. And then there's 2 weeks of growth and transformation, because there will be growth and a transformation in your life as you give your life over to the Lord. Many lessons learned during the seminar, and one major one was for my wife. She was very involved in astrology. Now, there might be some questions about astrology, but I'll tell you what we learned about astrology. She was making charts for our children when we were still in New York. And it got so bad that there were times when she would look on the chart and would say not to send the kids out. She would keep them home from school because the chart said that there was not going to be a good day for them, which is really not good. Now, she found out that that was not of God to know the future. That's His job. So we have to live by faith and know that God is going to direct us in our lives that are going to be what He wants of us. So she had to surrender that part of her life so she could make room for Jesus to be Lord of her life. I had some things that I had to get out of my life too in order for Jesus to have complete dominance over me. But this was a big one for her. And she didn't like that at all. We went home and she was in a battle. And she could actually see above her head the good angel and the devil battling over her soul. And we prayed and we prayed and we prayed, and finally the evil went away. And she was all set to be able to receive that baptism in the Spirit that we call it, which is the release of the Spirit in our lives. And as we know, when we go into a battle, that Jesus is always the victor, especially when we call upon Him to surrender our will so that His will be done. I learned a lot about how to accept God's love and the spiritual gifts of the Holy Spirit, as we find in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 and following.